Cool.
All right, we're live. Hello, my name is Lana Bashinsky, and this is the sixth in a short series of podcasts we've been releasing in the weeks leading up to GDC. We have been meeting and conducting brief interviews with the speakers involved with the animation microtalks at this year's animation boot camp. I am very excited to be here this evening with Ryan Duffin. Hello.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm in a car.
Yes, it's very moody looking.
Yeah. I'm like, I wish I had a dome light in the back and I could do it like witness protection style.
Well, I feel like I'm kind of like interrogating you in a weird way.
Where were you? Why do you? Sorry.
That's okay.
Probably make more sense on video than the podcast format this will eventually be on.
Yeah, I don't know.
As a formerly experienced podcaster, I should know better.
Oh, it's all good. I always mess up introductions, and so I've been doing this fun thing where I've been letting all of the interviewees introduce themselves. So do you want to give us a quick overview about who you are and what you do?
Sure, but I'm gonna roll up my window, and so my car's gonna beep. It beep. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
It'll make it quieter. What am I doing? I'm introducing myself.
Yeah, you're gonna tell us a little bit about you.
Cool. My name is Ryan Duffin. I am one of the hosts of the Reanimators podcast. I don't know. I might have gotten fired by Mike. I don't know.
What?
No, we just haven't done one in a long time, and they're still waiting for the last one. I'm an animator at Dice LA. I animate a lot of first-person and multiplayer gameplay stuff. I worked in a bunch of places in Europe and the US over my career and made a bunch of games and stuff.
Beautiful.
All of them had animation in them.
Supposedly. Yeah, wonderful. Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me this evening from your vehicle.
Thank you.
I don't want to dwell too long on this because as it is, this interview is going to be longer than the actual talk. But do you have like maybe a tagline or some sort of quick overview of what your micro talk will be about?
The quick overview, I guess, I wish I had a catchy tagline and maybe I'll try and come up with one by the 15th. Probably not by the 15th, but maybe by the actual talk. It's just about reference. And it's one of those things that's like, sometimes we all know about reference. We all know what collecting references and stuff like that, but it's really easy to forget. It's one of those things you kind of need to hear over and over again. And you're like, I know how this looks. And then you're just animating from your head and you probably shouldn't in a lot of cases. It's true of every game discipline, really. It's just that animators and artists are some of the few people who learned it in school that like, yeah, you should get reference, but I think it's applicable to pre-production across the board.
Yeah. So did you have like a really bad experience where you had a bunch of people being like, I know what it looks like? Like what inspired you to speak on this particular subject?
So this is getting into part of my talk, but it's No, it's okay. Because I was gonna talk about like do a rundown of how guns work for animators because it's video games, so they have to have guns, of course, because
naturally
they're video games, and that's what video games means. But just like
made in America.
Yeah, no shit. At least they could have swords on them, like Japanese like gun swords. Those are cool, practical but cool. But no, it's just something that I was seeing like across the board, like not everybody, but a lot of people get this wrong. And sometimes it's for gameplay reasons, but sometimes it's just for ignorance. And it's not like you don't need to be a professional to get this stuff right. You just have to want to get it right and pursue the information. And then I was like, well, first of all, I don't want to talk about guns because we already have that bad reputation. But second of all, it's like, this isn't really about guns. It's about doing your homework.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it came from.
That sounds like the beginnings of a catchy tagline.
Yeah. So I might even have one in the Google Docs summary of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't be able. I don't have that here. I don't have that in my car.
That's good. That just means people are going to have to stick around for themselves later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. So these interviews, again, I don't really want to talk about the talk because
Okay.
I don't want to give too much away before anybody gets a chance to check it out. But I did put together a brief questionnaire that's more, discussing you and who you are, and just a cute little thing about yourself. And I was wondering if
Okay.
I could ask you some questions this evening.
Of course.
Fantastic. So I'm actually very curious to hear your answer because we've chatted a couple times in the past, and I know you have, it seems like you have a lot of interesting hobbies. So if you could do anything other than what you're doing right now, what would it be?
Um, I would probably be trying to make money off of building cars.
Yeah.
Um, like like building hot rods. I don't know how much of a market there's going to be for that in the coming years, or even now. Um,
They'll
some
be
kind of
they'll be car hipsters.
yeah, probably. I don't know. Um, I like actually making stuff with my hands, whether it's like metalworking, welding. Um, but I have this idea for like making cars like as characters, if that makes any sense. This is like a
Like
business plan. I probably shouldn't even give it away.
like
But
her like Herbie the Love Bug kind of thing, or
no, no, not like a and a better example would have been the dog truck from Dumb and Dumber. But I
okay,
don't mean like
yeah.
I don't mean like theme car. I mean like a lifestyle car.
Oh,
Like
okay.
if you're like one example would be like the art student. And so it would be like a car built with like fuel economy in mind, and like it would be wrapped instead of painted so you could change the color easily, and it would be like have a bunch of storage space and almost like boutique cars. And of course it'd have to be cheap, otherwise it wouldn't be like, or no, that wasn't the student, that was the starving artist.
Oh,
So it's got to be
beautiful.
like a cool old station wagon that gets good mileage. And then another one was like the street parking, which would be a similar kind of car that has like really good bumpers and is really short.
Like a
Maybe
ti-
like
like a big bumpered Fiat.
yes, exactly, like a Fiat with pontoons on the front and the back, and it'd be called the street parking. So
Beautiful.
yeah, stuff like that. I think there might be a market for that if you could make them cheap enough.
And would you make them to actually like be retained by those people, or to be sort of like, it almost sounds like it'd be an interesting exhibit, like an artistic, I made these cars that represent these different groups of people. Like even if it was like
Um,
not a widely manufactured thing, it'd still be very interesting to see.
it would be it maybe that would be like my showroom, but the point would be to sell them to people who would use them.
Yeah. Cool.
Because I feel like a lot of people are really like weird about old cars because they think like, oh, it's unreliable or oh, it's impractical, and it's like you can change that. You can, and it's not even that difficult. Like you can put a modern engine in an older car, and it's like, oh, now I get good mileage, and that's it. And now
You,
it's not super bad for the environment.
you can add
So,
seatbelts.
yeah, I still haven't to one of mine yet, but you can totally add seatbelts.
Do you have like a bunch of old cars of your own?
I have three old cars in my name. Yeah, one.
Holy schmoly.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. One is sitting in Texas. One is sitting in pieces in the San Gabriel Valley. I work on that one, and then the other is in my at my apartment.
Wonderful. Do you drive them, well, like the functional ones around, or are they just like showpieces hang it on the
Yeah, I drive the
curb?
functional one.
Yeah.
It's actually like it's a station wagon, so it's what I use to like when I need to haul stuff. Or it's pretty nice for that actually. And then
Beautiful.
the other one's more like a race car. So
Yeah.
yeah.
My sister's all about the wagon. She's a musician, so if it doesn't have some
Mm.
kind of wagon hatchback thing going on, it's like, no, that's not us. We're done here.
What does she play?
Oh, many things, many
Okay.
things. Yeah, we grow up doing piano lessons, and then she went on to learn uh, trumpet and the guitar and
Uh-huh.
uh, a million things. She studied jazz piano professionally. Like when I went to go pursue, I've told the story like 3 times somehow during these interviews. I went to go pursue animation. She went to go study music. She did a year of jazz piano, and then she went on to do sound engineering. So she does a lot more mixing, and well, she plays a ton too. I don't know. She's cool.
You guys do collaborative projects, or have you ever talked about like you animating something and she scores it?
Oh, that is sweet. This is somehow turning into an interview about me.
No.
No, I'm pretty sure that I feel like I don't want to say this just in case she watches it. I feel like she really hated me growing up a lot. I feel like she resented the fact that she had a twin sister. Certainly, we didn't get along very well. Where I would just find these little things that she would despise, and I'd be like, "I will latch onto that forever." And we certainly get along really well now. Now we're super tight. But I don't know if we could work together still.
So which one is the evil twin?
I don't know how to define evil.
I mean, it's really just a matter of perspective. But
Yeah, I will say that I'm the nice one because I have to interact with you. And if you have some inkling that I am worse, maybe that'll be less pleasant. Anyways, GDC is coming up. You've been going to GDC for how many years now?
this will be my fifth one. I didn't go when I think I went in 2010, and then I didn't go in 2011, and then I've been every year since.
Crazy. So is there anything you're most excited about for this year?
Yeah, I mean the most exciting thing about GDC for me is like just seeing everybody from all the different studios I used to work at, and just all the people I've never worked with too. Like, I mean the first couple days are like the whole animation boot camp thing. I mean, the years that I participate or the years that I don't, it's still like those are the people who get me really excited about game animation again.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I'm like oh, if I don't go to GDC then fuck this job, um but it's good to recharge your batteries once a year with a bunch of people who are like really excited about it. And I think not enough of the industry places value on that cross pollination.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
With like yeah, it's good to like you get lunch with the animators from your work, but you should talk to the other animators at the other studios. And that's in theory the value of like this game dev drink up that I'm may or may not go into after this. But yeah, I mean, just like talking to other people who are in different trenches, fighting different battles, but you probably have a lot to learn from each other. And I think studios aren't going to place value on that necessarily because they think you're just going to go work for the other guys. I've been told by several studios, at least two, that they're like nobody goes to GDC unless they're looking for a job, and that's if that's how your studio thinks, then you shouldn't be surprised that people are looking for a job.
Yeah, I feel like that's. Sorry, I feel like that is something I've heard a lot about GDC and sort of experienced a lot of that sort of like angsty tension to it. But that's my favorite thing about the animation bootcamp when it started up is I feel like a lot of studios will get in their own sort of circles of like a hoity-toityness, almost like we don't need them. Like, why do we need them? We have everything we need right here. Kind of these little different cultures, but that I think the animation bootcamp is really breaking down a lot of those sort of, I don't even want to say awkward conversation, but I feel like it was kind of an uncomfortable topic for a lot of people, is just to talk to each other about our own work, because there's almost like this is mine, don't look at it, this is me. And I feel like that's sort of the beautiful thing about the boot camp and GDC in general, is it's sort of breaking down those boundaries in a healthy way.
Yeah, I feel like especially for people when it's their first year of the animation boot camp, I sense that from some people that like they're initially very reserved and not in like not just like shy, but they're like, oh, I don't know if I should be talking to you guys about this stuff. And it's not like we're talking about secret projects, we're just talking about animation for video games.
Mm-hmm.
And then as they see like, oh, that person works here and that person works there and that person none of those people work together, but they're speaking freely about this topic that is all of our careers, and then they sort of warm up to it and realize that like, no, this is good for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. So just kind of a nice segue, speaking of first timers at places, what would you say is your most embarrassing or your funniest or the worst kind of mistake that you made as a rookie on your first gig?
Oh God. I saw this question on there. I was like, oh, I know there's got to be something. There's probably a lot of things, but I couldn't think of them. Certainly not for lack of making mistakes,
Hmm.
um, but for lack of a good memory is
That's
really
fair.
it.
The intentional
Um,
blockades of those traumatic experiences.
yeah, I'll tell one story, and this really wasn't from my first job. It was actually like 5 to 6 years into my career. But it was a big, I don't know, it's a rookie mistake that I think is a landmark in a lot of animators' careers.
Hmm.
Is that like I worked at a studio where we were doing a lot of mocap stuff. And it was my first job doing anything with mocap. And I was like, we should keyframe this, we should keyframe this, we should keyframe this. And we know animators who have been doing it for 5 or 10 or 20 years who still say that. And it's just, it depends on what you're animating is the to me the correct answer. But at the time I was like, why don't we keyframe this, as if the fun part of making the game is the right way to do it, and or even the best way to do it. So then my very next job, they were like, oh, we keyframe everything. I hope nobody like goes back and does the homework on this. It's really talking shit about me more than the studio. But they were like, oh, so we're keyframing everything. And so I got an assignment of like, okay, we need to like keyframe, like the guy like walks up to a water container and he like pours himself a drink of water and takes a drink, and he's got all these places where it can like branch out and all these different combos. And I was like, what and it's got to be realistic. That's like fucking 3 weeks worth of work. And why don't we just mocap? And then I was like, bing, light comes on. I'm an idiot. Of course we should fucking mocap that. And I felt like such an asshole about the last studio,
Hmm.
that I was just like what they must have been thinking when I was saying like, oh, we should keyframe, we should keyframe. Like, our job isn't to set keyframes. Our job is to make shit look good and in a timely and efficient way. We're using
And
the best tools we have at our disposal. And so,
yeah,
um,
and to like make a great experience for the player.
exactly. That was
Yeah,
my mocap moment.
yeah.
And so I guess that was a rookie. I think that's a rookie mistake. That's a very common animator mistake, and not always a rookie mistake.
It's kind of a very common life mistake. It's almost like when you're a kid and growing up, and then later you have that moment where you're like, my parents were right. And you're like, oh, I'm so stupid. I mean, of course I was, but like the moment you really realize, like I remember that I had a thought once when I had with these crappy roommates, and I found myself saying a line that I'd heard my mom say about a million times growing up. That's just like, I cleaned this kitchen 10 minutes ago and there's already dishes in the sink. And then I was like, oh, I was the dishes. That used to be me.
I'm still the dishes.
All my dishes I scooted to like right there. Like just just off. So do you have a favorite piece of video game or animation jargon?
Oh God, I think it's so internalized at this point. I don't even think of it as jargon. Um, I really only notice when I'm talking about stuff around people who don't get it. I mean, really around like non-game developers.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, "What the fuck is that?" But um, shit, I don't know. What are some of the other answers you got?
Probably my favorite was from Gwen, who actually had a very specific like Boston game development slang, and it
Okay.
was frob. And frobbing is like anytime a player interacts with something. So they're like, oh, when the player frobs that. And it just like, I'm trying to even remember, like paraphrasing her word, but it was like a completely new word I'd never heard of. Um,
Huh.
uh, I think Jake Clark said that he likes pop, like giving something pop, like really making it pop. I said I really like it when somebody describes an animation. Oh, that one's really punchy.
Yeah.
Like not necessarily like a keyframe, but like is there a word that you find yourself routinely going back to be like, oh, this needs more of that?
Um, yeah. Yeah, I can't think of any. I can't think of any. I got nothing. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, you're not
I don't know.
disappointing me so much as
Layers,
everyone who might listen.
additives, are those even jargon?
Which one?
Layers or additives,
Additive,
or
maybe. I mean, those are
um,
all jargon, technically.
yeah, I've had responsiveness show up as incorrect with an autocorrect. I don't know if that makes it not actually a word or just something that like matters to gameplay animators, and so we just think it's a word. But um, yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything cool. I don't have like a fromp um, or flob. Flob sounds dangerously close to throb,
It's.
and that's a creepy word.
I think she said it was FROB. That was it's such a funny interview because Gwen and I didn't have video; it was just the voices. So it's
Uh,
like kind of this back and forth, and Google Hangouts as a way of making you guys like making everybody stumble over each other because the delay. But man, I there's so many just horribly inappropriate jokes on the tip of my tongue that I somehow avoided saying about frobbing things. Um, well, I'll tell you about them when you're older.
okay.
Anyways, so what do you hope people take away from our micro talks?
Um, I love the idea of I think the small tidbit idea kind of it started with Alex's talk really, and then and I don't know, I think yours I don't know if yours came out of that or if it was like serendipitously at the same time, but like the whole idea of not every talk needs to be 30 minutes, and that sometimes there's just like here's 5 minutes of something you should know, and it might actually change your life. Not all talks need to be like you might get you're very likely to get something more out of 6 5-minute talks than you are one 30-minute talk about some studio's internal process that you can't necessarily replicate.
Mm-hmm.
But as an animator, it's more likely to be like, here's this thing that you might have never thought of, or even probably in my case, like here's this thing you knew, but are you actually implementing? Are you actually practicing this in your work? And things like that. Like sometimes just like hey, smooth your tangents. You're like, oh yeah, yeah, that doesn't need to be a 30-minute talk. You just I mean that's a terrible example, but
Just
you know
like
what I
a
mean.
reinforcement of something that maybe falls on the wayside sometimes.
Exactly. Like there's you can talk about like oh, the speed of an animation versus the scale of its character. It's like, yeah, you could do a 5-minute talk on like, okay, every time if you double the speed of your animation, it's appropriate physically for something that's half that size. That's a 5-minute talk. That's like,
Hmm.
whoa, I didn't think for a lot of people, that's like, I never thought of that if
Yeah.
you've never been to that lecture. So stuff like that. I like the idea of not no I like all killer, no filler, like I want to play a 2 hour game that's badass, not a 10-hour game or a 30-hour game or a 70-hour game. It's like, well, they knew that they were going to complain if it was only 10 hours, so we got to put a bunch of extra shit that nobody cares about in there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
get to the point. I have low attention span, and short talks are awesome. Tell me something good and get the fuck off the stage.
Yeah, like these juicy little bites. I think just for you're curious, and just in case anybody else is curious, Mike and Tim actually approached me via the interwebs with this idea that they had an hour of the day that they wanted to be different and energizing, and they had said that they thought like some sort of my series of micro talks might be nice, and they referred me to the format of the main conference, like indie micro talks, I think they are.
Yeah.
And then from there, we corresponded. We kind of whittled it down, and that's when we came up with doing the theme, and then came up with getting not just animators, but like people from all sort of just walks of life in game development with some sort of focus in animation. So
Mhm.
different perspectives on what we're doing to hopefully get 10 very different little pieces of info.
I think that's
Um,
awesome. I think that'll be really cool.
yeah, I'm really excited about it. The goal, I suppose. So I find myself sort of like answering these questions sometimes because I never have answered them. But I think I kept saying that I wanted the micro talks to be the most engaging while still informative, like just entertaining part of the boot camp.
Mhm.
If nothing else, I hope everybody will be entertained.
I
Um,
hope so too. I need to go over everybody else's notes and see just how sweary everybody else is.
I think Billy's has like a curse right in the title, so you're pretty good.
Yeah, but I mean, it might be the only one.
Maybe. I know that
It
I
could
have
be
a notorious potty mouth, so we'll see if I can keep it profesh, but it'll probably be just riddled.
What,
um,
what, what does profesh even mean in animation? It's like you
we're
go up in a
making
suit and tie,
games. Yeah.
right?
Um, so I have two little questions here. This last one's kind of a little bit silly, but I do love asking it.
Okay.
If you could have any useless, and I mean truly useless, superpower, what would you choose?
I mean, what would a useless if it's a superpower? It probably has some use, right? Like,
Maybe, but here's an example. It's my favorite example. I didn't come up with it, but I heard it and I like peed my pants laughing the first time.
yeah,
Um,
I hope I don't
you,
pee my pants because I'm in a car.
I hope well, you can be invisible, but only when yelling.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Um, hmm.
It's a tough one to think of like a truly useless one.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be like invisible, um, oh, my battery's low. I thought it was gonna be something like um that Ben Stiller movie where it's like you could only be invisible when nobody's looking. It's like that's not, yeah, I
That's
don't know.
like, hey, I mean, it's
Yeah.
kind of, but
Shit. Um, sorry, my plugging in my phone.
all
Um,
good.
let's see. Useless superpower.
Oh,
Uh,
and you've also turned your camera off in the
oh,
process.
sorry.
There's a very dashing photo of you though.
Oh, cool. It's it's old. Let's to return to the call. Okay. Uh, okay. I'm gonna go with I would be able to turn into an armadillo.
That's pretty good.
I mean, it's
Armadillos?
useless, right? It's like that's definitely a superpower, and not just. I mean, people are like, "Oh, I can fold paper airplanes really well." It's like that's not a superpower. That's like a talent. It's
You
got to
can
be something
practice.
supernatural that it's against the laws of physics, but also useless. So I'm gonna go with I would turn into a armadillo.
That's like saying you can make yourself more susceptible to getting hit by cars.
Right, right. It's just
Yeah.
like no. It's very important to keep in mind the definition of the superpower when defining a useless one.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Well, do you have any final thoughts for people to mull over before arriving at GDC?
No, I just wish I'd prepared an answer better for that last question. This is pretty stupid, really. And I probably could have come up with something funnier with
Well,
more time.
that's kind of the point of the question is to
Okay.
just be ridiculous. I wouldn't be
Was
too
that in the
nervous.
email or did you just spring that on me?
Yeah, I just threw that one out. That was just curveball. That was in the email.
Okay. Okay.
That was like the first question I wrote, which is terrible. Um, yeah, that's all I got for you. Thank you so much for meeting me in your car this evening to chat.
I discovered that my dome light turns off automatically if you leave it long enough, which is pretty cool.
There you go. Now you'll never waste your battery as fast.
Yeah, hopefully.
I don't know much about cars. I don't know if I made that
Hopefully my car
evident.
starts after all this. We'll see.
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
wonderful chatting with you, everybody.
Mhm.
I think the times were finally posted. I think the micro talks are at 5 p.m. on the Monday during the animation boot camp, and super excited to see you there.
Super excited.
Great. We'll talk to you later.
All right. See ya.